My name is Hazel Millichamp, and this is the Light on Leeds podcast, where we aim to shine a light on all of the amazing people in Leeds and the crazy, great, amazing things they're doing. This week's guest is Kenneth Barker. He's a producer, writer, director, and filmmaker. He has his own film company, WOTR on the Rocks. It's a Leeds-based independent film company, and it's been going since 1998. He has 5 feature-length films that you can see. There'll be lots of notes in the podcast. It's great just to speak to Kenneth about how he got started, some of the trials and tribulations he's faced, and yeah, just to chat to you in general. I think you're going to really enjoy it. Have a listen. On this episode of the Light on Leeds podcast, I have Kenneth Barker, producer, writer, director, filmmaker, come to speak to me. Hi, Kenneth.
Hazel, how are you?
I'm really great, thank you. Really great to be able to speak to you. I think we've been back and forth a bit trying to make it happen, but here we are.
Glad to be here. Thanks for your patience, and what a great opportunity to just speak to you and talk about making films.
Yeah, excellent. So can you tell me, Kenneth, how did you get involved in all of this? Is film been something that you've always been fascinated by?
Yeah, I think, bizarrely, if you look at me as a kid from primary school to where I am as an adult, it's all virtually a straight line of progression in terms of being interested in storytelling. I loved at school, primary school, books about fairies and people going on adventures. My older sister, I think, if I recall correctly, had Lord of the Rings, Tolkien, and I remember seeing some of the artwork and the illustrations, how they just made my mind go, wow. It was so exciting to see these fictional characters going off to these fantasy places. But then the bug really hit me, I think probably in 1990. I've got a guy called Irving Kershner. Some of the listeners will know that name to really thank, because he directed RoboCop 2. I was a big fan of the original in 1986 or 87.
Yeah.
I went to see the sequel at a special midnight screening in my hometown, and I came out shocked but grossly disappointed. And it made me think, well, you know what? I'd like to have a go at making a film. I think I can do better. And so that's where I started.
And how did you begin? What sort of equipment were you using?
Wow. I'm not ashamed to say, because it's actually the truth. I acquired this really old format Super 8 camera. Super 8 is a really very basic home filming format, which was, I think, prevalent in the 70s and the late 60s.
Yeah.
And the one I got, I can't remember where it came from. I think it may have been someone in the local newspaper. But that allowed me to go off and shoot a really rudimentary film. And then as time progressed, that film got me into film school. And then later on, after film school, I realized, look, I want to make something bigger and better. And bizarrely, I managed to get a hold of this High 8 camera, which is now a completely defunct old tape format, that allowed me to shoot at better quality. My girlfriend at the time, I probably kept battering her ears to say, I want to make a film, and I've got all these ideas. And she offered to give me 200 quid. I think it's probably money to shut me up. But armed with my little High 8 camera and £200, I wrote this wonderful story called Kingdom, about the last dragon sanctuary in modern day Leeds, effectively, in Yorkshire. And off we went. Plus a bit of a major detour on the way, but that's essentially how I made the jump from being a little tiny filmmaker to being a bit more ambitious.
Oh, great. And so where did you go to film school?
It was the Northern School of Film and Television, which is in Leeds, and back in the early 90s, it was regarded as one of the top 3 film schools in Europe, bizarrely.
Wow, that's amazing. And what do you feel that you learned there then?
You know, wow, what a question. That was a postgraduate diploma for 1 year. It was an incredibly intense course. I actually pretty much didn't enjoy the course. It was so, how can you put it, a baptism of fire.
Yeah.
Because you really got to meet a lot of people, a lot of mini Spielbergs, a lot of egos. On the flip side, though, I learnt my trade from the ground upwards. Literally, we shot on 16mm film, which is still a relatively current high quality format. and we had to take the film from first idea right through to production. And I really learned my craft of how to crew a film up, working with so many different specialist people, and then really having the tenacity to stick it out to the end. It was a 1 year course. I ended up staying for 2 years, bizarrely. That's the thing about film, it kind of metamorphizes around you. But I've one thing I really massively took on board and learned for that year is, certainly film wise, if I start something, I finish it. The film has no value if it's had a lot of people contribute to it. You shoot to it, but you lack the gumption and the vision to complete it. So that film was completed, and that's just been something I've been immensely proud of, getting through all those challenges.
Yeah, of course, definitely. So when you made Kingdom, was it the idea of the story that comes first, and then you have to sort of build how it is you're going to portray that?
Absolutely. It's I like to joke it's too much cheese before bedtime, because the story is pretty well. Is that came around after I was at film school in the mid-90s, and you specialize in your particular area. So I specialized as a producer, and during that time I started to realize, well, I really enjoy kind of creating things. I knew that anyway, and I wrote several screenplays. I sent them off to the big production companies like, Working Title, who had made Notting Hill, and there's other things starring Hugh Grant. And they all pretty much wrote back saying, Ken, wonderful idea, but you know what? Don't give up your day job. We're going to use this to
Oh,
prop the doors open or whatever. So I've always kind of joked that of all the rejection letters I've had, I could paper my flat, because literally until about the beginning of the year, I kept all of them, and I've had some glorious rejections. One of the favourite ones was from the former chairman of British Home Stores, Sir Philip Green.
oh yeah.
He writes beautiful rejection letters. They're clearly dictated, but I don't never met the man, but you can see there's a particular style to them. And so the big thing for filmmakers is it's just securing finance, trying to get money to produce your film. So you write to the most weird and wonderful people to try and get backing. I wrote
Yeah.
to him, and twice he bounced me out. I've written to more people than I care to think of. So yeah, it's just keeping going is the tricky part. And I realised when I'm getting rejected by all these people, I thought, well, hang about, Ken, you've just been at film school, you've got all these skills, all these creative people around you. Build your own network, build your own film. And I love dragons. I love all that kind of fantasy stuff, and a bit of sci-fi, also straight drama as well. And the bonkers idea of making a film with computer-generated dragons in just massively appealed to me. In 1990, I think 7, when the film was first written, that's still quite a major feat for Hollywood. So here am I coming on as a little upstart with virtually no money, and I want to make this ambitious film. So I think I had a little lie down for a moment. Then I realised, let's get up and let's give it a go.
That's fantastic. So, computer generated dragons. So, did you have to teach yourself quite a lot of new skills?
Massively and all the time. And luckily, I met, I suppose I was chief nutter. And hopefully that's not a disrespectful term to myself. I met a group of other people who are perhaps similarly as crazy as me, but who wanted to come out and play and bring their skill sets. So I had a fantastic editor called Heidi Steiner, who was at film school with me. She edited the film. And I met a wonderful gentleman called Arif Majothi, who's based over in Dewsbury. Arif was an absolute wizard when it came to visual effects. He saw into my vision. He brought tremendous humour to the project, and it was Arif and a guy called Gary Roundtree who helped me create the dragons for the film, to make them computer generated. And we actually had the dragon basic models scanned at I think it's Frame Store, the computer film company. These are the guys who do Walking with Dinosaurs down in London with the BBC and all those really high brow things.
Oh,
And
wow.
there they were, scanning our little dragons for our little film. So yeah.
That's amazing. And how did you cast the film? Did you already have, again, like a group of people that you'd come across because of film school?
Cool question. I try to think back. Generally, There may have been one or two which circulated in that kind of orbit of being around creative people, but I used a thing called PCR back in the day called Production and Casting Report. There's a small, any of the actors out there will recognize PCR. It's a small little A5 size brochure, red covers on, and if you're making a film pretty much of any scale, you'd put your casting notice in there and it would get sent to all the actors in the UK. Because when I made my first film, I put a notice in there, and that's the same issue as Luc Besson had his casting notice in for The Fifth Element. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, his huge film and my tiny little film. And I had a load of people come from literally, which I absolutely bow to the generosity of so many actors and crew, because I've had people come from all over the country to take part in Kingdom. We shot on a minuscule budget. I met a wonderful lead called Simon Kirk, who played the main character. Manouk van der Meulen, who's from Holland. She played like the dragon catcher. She absolutely respectfully chewed the scenery up. She was having such fun playing the big bad. She just made the whole thing work so well. And she went on afterwards to do a same-sex love scene in Touch of Frost or something.
Oh, wow.
I remember that getting centre page spread, I think, in the Daily Mirror, because at the time it was still a bit risque on the screen. But Manouk was great in the script. So yeah, actors came from pretty much across the UK, and we had several regional ones as well.
And how long did it take you to finish that, do the whole thing from start to finish?
Oh, well, if you could see me in person, I started off with lots of lovely hair. Now I'm quite bald and grey because we had to work around various day jobs and other bits and pieces. So I'd estimate we started shooting in May 1990, I think 97 or 98, and we finished it in time for the premiere around about October 1999.
Oh, okay.
So it's quite some time, and one of the bugbears is not having any money. It means everything's on a very elongated schedule. It would be great to be able to move so much faster. We had what we did do, and I was very lucky to meet a small private investor who put a small amount of money into the film, which allowed us to shoot at a higher quality and actually pay a few bus fares for people. And he bought all the various computer equipment we needed to actually shoot the film on and everything else. And we were going to have a premiere at the Metropole Hotel in Central Leeds, a black tie premiere.
Wow.
So we booked all the cast and the crew and the sponsors, because I wanted to say thank you. So many people generously gave time for no fee. They just wanted to do it because they could or put back. One of the key actors in the film was a guy called Alan O'Keefe. I don't know if there's a name you recognise at all, Hazel?
I don't think so.
He was the lead actor in Z-Cars.
Oh, wow.
From years ago. And he came out to have a play playing one of the eccentric millionaires who own the legal company who protect the estate where the dragons live, essentially. So we had this wonderful, before the premiere, when everything's getting lined up, we're still technically finishing the film, and the premiere is booked for about 2 months into the future, so 19th of November 1999. And I'm editing one day, and all of a sudden, I'm editing on a computer, I should hasten to add, the entire system just folds up and crashes, and it wipes the entire film.
Oh, no.
Oh, even now I think about it, it just makes me go, and literally, Hazel, that was the first time I lost weight without actually doing anything, because I think my body chemistry changed in an instant, because you suddenly realize you've probably got about 175 people coming to this beautiful hall we have booked. We've had catering laid on. People have bought dresses. People have booked rooms to stay in the hotel. And I couldn't face going there and saying, actually, everybody, I've screwed up and the film has been lost.
Oh, God. What did you do?
Well, my partner at the time, she was a graphic designer. I realized when she started looking at how we were editing the film, this was still relatively early in the days of computer editing. When you go to your program, be it Word or Photoshop or whatever it might be, when you go to open and update your project file,
Yeah.
It comes up and you carry on typing. But what we were doing on this particular piece of software, every day Heidi would do the editing and then she would save it. But I told Heidi, and this is not her fault at all, it's my fault. I told her, okay, when you pick up the next morning, go import your project file, not open your project file. So every time we were importing it, the project was becoming massively, effectively nested inside itself. It's like, analogy would be like going inside a more ever-increasingly complex maze. And every day the maze would double in size.
Oh.
So it got to the point where the computer, poor thing, just tossed its cookies out and just completely wiped everything. So, luckily, I knew the film at that stage. I was doing the finishing touches back to front. All the footage remained on the computing system. It was just the order to reassemble it in. So, realizing what I'd done, having actually reading the instructions properly, I was able to just re-edit the entire film based on what Heidi had done, just effectively clone it from memory. And we got to the point, I think it was, I don't know, probably about 2 weeks before the premiere, where I finally got the film to output itself onto a master tape, which meant we could project it. And at that moment, I was so happy. One of the other guys turned up, one of the landlords where the building I was living in. He happened to turn up as I was just starting this process. I was so happy. I wanted to kiss him just to go, woohoo! But I restrained myself and we just shook hands and I told him, and everything went beautifully. It was a fantastic evening from there.
Oh, great. So you had the premiere and everyone was pleased.
Very much so. It's just nice to have people just see the work. And one thing I've uniquely found about making films is people love to tell you exactly how they feel about your work. This is friends or not. Some people go, Ken, that was really great. And I've had people say, Ken, that was exclusive. So people, you always create a reaction. And it's just nice to have, many of the key cast there. And for me, and all the sponsors, and for me to say, guys, this is what we've created together. Thank you so much for taking part.
That's amazing. And so when you had, you've gone through all of your trials and tribulations, and you've had your premiere. Was there a part of you that thought, well, I'm never doing that again? Or were you quite quickly thinking of your next project?
The latter. I love it. I'm obsessed. I think sometimes it can actually almost destroy relationships. Stories, in my mind, for me, are more, without being gross, like mental diarrhea. The next story was coming along. Things inspire you, and I think it's almost a vocation, because it was a calling to, I have to tell this story. That's where the dragons come from, because I could see it in my mind's eye, and I knew I have to tell that story. And then when the next project came along, that was inspired by just that little notion of, do you know who your neighbor is? Could they be an astronaut? Could they be a major surgeon? Could they be royalty from a far off country which you didn't know about? And then I thought, well, imagine if your neighbor, who you didn't know, turned out to be an opera singer who just missed her chance on superstardom, and she ends up living next to you as a recluse. And that was the genesis for my next film. So things just come out randomly.
Yeah, definitely. And so what was that film called?
That film is called Rosetta Prima Donna Assoluta. Rosetta, number one singer.
Wow, that sounds great. So did you actually have to find somebody who could sing opera?
Well, we cheated there because I knew it was going to be a major cost to license music for a singer and to have that music overdubbed.
Yeah.
So I wrote it really about, there's an opera singer called Maria Callas. I don't know if you know that name.
I do.
Yep. Well, I imagine in my story, she had somebody called Rosetta Di Curci, who's like a predecessor for her. But Rosetta, very sadly, became ill with a polyp on her throat. So she had a choice. She could have surgery on her larynx or whatever it might be to cure this, but she would never sing again professionally. Or if she didn't have surgery, the prognosis would be pretty grim. So she decides to have the surgery. Her career disappears after making some very successful recordings. And then she ends up living in Leeds over a record shop as a recluse. So I put out a casting notice, I think, and once again, my little PCR, production and casting reporting. And there is a very well-known coffee shop in the city centre. of Leeds, and it's run by a certain lady. And I went in there to see her to say, I'm looking for an Italian lady of a certain maturity. Would you happen to know anybody who could be in this little film I'm making? Because it's kind of could be fun and it's semi-serious and got great music in. And this particular lady said to me, basically, Kenneth, go away.
Oh.
Just leave me alone. But by coincidence, on the same day, the Yorkshire Evening Post picked up my story. So there's a picture of me and my casting director saying we're auditioning for the lead character for this wonderful film, Rosetta, Prima Donna Assoluta. Here's our phone number, blah, blah, blah. And literally, this lady who rejected me out of hand, all of a sudden turned around and she was ringing me multiple times to be in the film. And they even got onto, I think it was Calendar rang me to say we would like to film you auditioning this particular person, but they wanted me to do it in a non-serious way, and I'm not particularly up myself about my work, but this particular film was more serious, and it was a serious process, so I declined their invitation because I thought, no, I want to make something which is it's got some artistic merit, and doing like a mock silly audition just doesn't work. So
No, it sounds like a really odd thing for them to ask you to do, really.
Totally. So that was a big no on that one. I did meet a fantastic lady in the end who I think pulled off an Italian accent incredibly well, and she was from Scarborough, of all places.
Wow.
But she really impressed me during the audition, and she became the character. So yeah, we got that film produced, and that's actually free for anybody to view on YouTube. It's Rosetta Prima Donna Assoluta. I call it a rainy Wednesday afternoon melodrama. You just want to cuddle up and watch a film about this group of characters and how they care for each other. It's got great music in, so we can put the music on from licensable music. So it's not open source. It's Creative Commons license. That's why it's on YouTube. If you want a cheap evening at the opera, anyone, go along, look it up, and get your volume turned up.
That's great. Did you learn anything from Rosetta, from Making Kingdom? Did you do anything sort of differently?
Yes, we did actually. All respect to the actors in Kingdom. There was one day we were shooting in a museum in Bradford. I think it was an agriculture museum. Sorry, I can't remember its name. But the actors, bless them, my little actor friends, got into a long conversation about how they should do a particular scene. And for reasons I think I was just shy or a bit scared perhaps, but I didn't freeze. I just let them talk too much.
Right.
And eventually I reined it back in. And then we got on, we finished the film, etc. Then sometime later, several days later, one of the crew said to me, Kenneth, we're all following you. You should have stopped that conversation a lot sooner because we lost a lot of time. And that really was a good lesson to me because certainly as a director, and well, more so as a director than a producer, when you say action and cut, you need to be on your game because the crew are looking at you to get it right, to know what you want exactly. And if you show sign of weakness, I think they can start to lose faith in you. Luckily, we got so far into the production, people could see, sure, I didn't know everything and I was open to ideas, but I knew what I wanted. So that little blip was a really good lesson. And during Rosetta, we had different actors, of course, but, and going forward from there, I've never allowed that to happen again.
Can you explain to me, I've always found this difficult to understand, I'm really into film, but what is the difference between the roles of a director and of a producer?
Essentially, the producer I would say is the bigger role. If you have the two separate, the producer will generally come up with the idea. They will commission the script from a screenwriter, the screenplay. They will organize the entire infrastructure for the project, and then the producer will bring on the director. So the director is responsible for the entire artistic vision of what the film is.
Whereas the producer's kind of in charge of the sort of overranging project, the all of the logistics, everything.
Spot on. Perfect. Exactly so. So ideally, those two personalities, their vision should meet. Otherwise, you just create clashes. You end up with films which don't get completed. But yeah, it's logistics versus artistic vision can make a happy marriage.
And you were doing both of those roles for these films?
Yes, I couldn't find anybody silly enough to do it for me. So it was easier. And I think it's actually great. Technology, today's technology allows you to do so much more with fewer people. But I do believe in keeping specialists for each particular trade. And right now, for me, it is generally been easier to wear both hats. Start off originating the story, write it myself, but then switch mode to become a director and just surround yourself with layers of really good, talented people who are hungry for an opportunity, who've got skills they want to come back and share. Because one thing I've seen so many times is had a lot of people from the major film industry have come back and have wanted to put in, not for any money, just because they can, and the generosity. And people talk about Richard Attenborough being a big lovey,
Yeah.
everything else. And for years, I always kind of laughed at it, thinking how quaint. And then I really realized in later films, Lovey is a beautiful thing. It's because he's talking about the generosity of people's spirit, literally on a film set. And sometimes the work is incredibly hard. And the troopers will come up and they'll just keep going, or they'll cheer you up. They'll freely give of their time. And to my mind, I get that now. You're being a Lovey. It's nothing being pretentious. It's people just wanting to give the best, because at the end of the day, the audience won't know what wrangles or what acrimony or whatever else went on behind the scenes. They'll just want to see this beautiful film, and that comes through having great people just being generous and just wanting to become that film.
Yeah, that's lovely, isn't it?
Mm.
And so after Rosetta, where did your mind go next?
Well, there's a guy called Christopher Nolan. Do you know if you know that name?
I do, yeah.
He's the big Hollywood director. He started with very humble beginnings, and he did Batman Begins, which was a tremendous film. And for reasons which will never become adequately explained anytime soon, I thought, well, what happens if you turn the notion of that very dour, serious superhero on its head? And I just had this vision of doing a transvestite superhero.
Yeah, why not?
So absolutely. And I was speaking to somebody at my day job about it, and I must have just glibly said something, and they kind of reflected it back on me, and it made me laugh. And I loved the notion of, okay, let's just play it straight, but the notion of this person just wanting to change their outer appearance to become this superhero just tickle me. So that's how Catalina, a new kind of superhero, came into being. And actually, the film is played incredibly straight. The humor is in the premise of, the person changing. He has female girlfriends, and since completing the film, I had a friend of mine who's actually realized they wanted to change their gender identity. They wanted to be a trans woman now, becoming a trans woman. And I knew this person when we were shooting Rosetta, so I thought, oh, hell, have I stood on someone's feet? Have I been disrespectful? But they were okay, and they realized what I was trying to do. And so it is it's a nice message. Most importantly, it's just an entertainment, which is just simple fun. It
Yeah,
doesn't poke
definitely.
fun at people's lifestyle.
Yeah. And also nice for people to see themselves represented.
Absolutely. Certainly as a black filmmaker, uh, I see relatively few, and it's hard for a lot of people. But you know, uh, it's interesting you mentioned that, actually, because in Rosetta, I wanted to cast a black lead against the opera singer, and it just seemed to be impossible to get a black actor. I did find one in the end, Daniel Martel Gardner, and there's another wonderful chap, but he emigrated to Australia, I
Oh,
believe. So he would have been fantastic. Daniel was very good himself, but it is a problem finding people of color who want to be behind and in front of camera. But certainly with what's my favorite, Catalina, a new kind of superhero, I met a guy who was going to be in another film, and he auditioned so well, and he made me laugh, and he had a great look. He just made me think, well, actually, I've got this idea for this transvestite superhero film. This guy called Nathan Lubbock Smith, who auditioned for something else, and I couldn't get him out of my head. And I said, look, would you be interested in appearing in the lead in Catalina? and he snapped my arm off. So off we went.
Oh, excellent. And with these first 3 films, what sort of feedback did you get from people?
It's still ongoing. Those films are still out there in the off my website and other places. It's funny enough, Catalina is just being picked up by Gay Binge TV, a streaming channel.
Oh, wow.
By all means, it's going strong. Kingdom pops up from time to time in different places. It's on the BFI yearbook as well. So
That must be great for you to, something that you've made such a long time ago, still, creating ruffles and people noticing and getting in touch.
absolutely, it's tremendous. I remember in particular when Kingdom was relatively fresh out of the blocks. I must have done a radio show or something because a guy rang up. I wish I'd have kept the message. Or I think it was an email he may have sent where he may have been a verbal message, but he said his grandkids watched Kingdom back to back twice, and they just enjoyed it because you've got these actors running around Temple Newsom and Lofton Hall, and whereas there's another place, Kirkstall, where the settings were. So people are recognizing things in the region, but then we have these talking dragons. So for a film with little budget, even back in the day, it's quite sophisticated how we got it together. But the kids were just enjoying it, and for my mind, it's a real challenge as a filmmaker. If I can make a film which can entertain a 6-year-old right up to a 66-year-old or an 80-year-old, then I've won. So it's great fun.
Oh, that's just brilliant. And it must be really lovely to get that kind of response.
It is.
So after Catalina, what was next?
Well, as a kid in the late 70s and early 80s, I loved BBC television when they would go, and now for a season of science fiction films, and they'd show films like War of the Worlds, When Worlds Collide, and one of my favourites, The Day the Earth Stood Still, and what's the other fantastic one, Forbidden Planet.
Yeah.
I love that film. So I was in my day job, but I realised it wasn't really what I wanted to do, and things weren't going particularly well for me in the day job, actually. And you know how things are.
Yeah.
And I bumped into a neighbour. It was a partner of a neighbour who's a very successful entrepreneur. And this gentleman owned a prominent business in the city centre of Leeds. And he said, look, Kenneth, I've got this great big hall, which is empty right now. Why don't you use that as a basis for your film, and you can shoot there, and off you go. So it just massively accelerated all these things coming together, accelerated departing from my day job, being given this facility to shoot in. I thought, well, let's make this film. It's called On the Shoulders of Giants, and it's set in the year in the 23rd century, whatever it may be. But we built this bridge for this 1950s retro-styled starship inside this old, disused church hall. And we set up this great big special effects green screen inside the church hall as well. And it was just such a wonderful sponsorship from Professor Adam Beaumont. It allowed me to make a film which I could not have made on no budget. It allowed us to raise production values incredibly high. So I'm eternally grateful for that. And I think we made a really cool film as a homage to all those 1950s films, which I loved as a kid. I still enjoy now. It was just, we had all kinds of things in there. We had a kind of a mad professor. We had, intelligent plant life, a good dollop of science fiction. But once again, I'm trying to get a nice, thick vein of entertainment in all my work. So yeah, incredibly pleasing. A very complicated film to make. Had about 700 special effects inside.
I watched the trailer. It was really impressive. I really love the costumes. How did you go about sourcing those?
Yeah, I had a very talented costume maker, Rachel, who responded to an advert I must have put on Facebook, one of the film specialist forums. I said, we've got this tiny budget. We're making this really cool film. It's an opportunity that somebody would like to come out and play. So Rachel came along, and then we met, and she pretty much ran off and took a brief. I think they're based on pretty much standard boiler costumes, boiler suits. And then she added her motifs and the pearls and everything. It was great measuring the actors for it. And I think they fit in, well enough on the screen, considering our budget was, pretty minuscule. I think Tom Cruise would laugh at me,
Yeah.
budget. But we got the film made, and kind of when I think about lovies, there's one really lovely makeup artist who worked on the film, Ashley. And I remember one day we were right in the middle of production. It was kind of busy, but it was a good-natured shoot. And she'd finished making up the lead actor, and she turned to me and said, "Kenneth, is there anything I can help you with? I'm really enjoying myself. What else do you need?" And even that actually brings a lump in my throat. Nearly kind of teared up because she just gave, and she didn't have to. And many other people would say, "Oh, that's not my job. I won't do anything else." But people like Ashley who just want to throw in. It's just tremendous. So, hats off.
Oh, that's great, isn't it? Do you think that's partly because anybody who's sort of involved with any aspect of film has that passion?
I think so. It's a lot of people said, "Oh, you're making a film. Can I be in it?" Well, can you act? And then when you put the camera on people, they freeze up.
Yeah.
I was in my first film. I had to cut myself out because I'm wooden, and I respect actors totally because it is a craft, and all the craft people who work on the specialist areas. I stand in awe of them. It's not being a pithy comment. I cannot make a film without these guys. And on the shoulders of giants inside this church hall, we had about 23 crew working on every day for 5 weeks. It was just amazing. And a lot of people who've got very particular skill sets wanted to put in, but they also wanted to take out, and the really smart ones were saying, this is what I want to learn. This is how I want to push myself. And, we had the result that we needed.
Yeah, definitely. Your company, your film company is called Water on the Rock. What's the significance of that phrase?
What a brilliant question. I was walking down Chapeltown Road one day in probably mid-1997, and I was thinking, oh, why is it so blasted hard to get into the film industry? It's just a killer. And I'd studied engineering for reasons which will just mind-bending. I studied engineering, so I was into hydraulics and things, and it just made me think, walking down this road in Chapeltown, I was heading to the city for some reason. How do I get into the film industry? It's just like water on the rock. If you put enough water on anything at the right pressure, you'll eventually crack it open.
Yeah.
I thought, of course, what a name for my company. And it also made me think of Archbishop Dr. Desmond Tutu in South Africa.
Yeah.
Said the people are like water on the rock. They keep pushing and using peaceful protests and political will. They broke apart the system of apartheid. So it's that dual heritage of, you keep applying, you keep pushing, don't give up. When people are laughing at you, just stick to your guns. You will break it open. And that's, for me, the name of my company is Water on the Rock. Just keep pushing, and it's starting to deliver fruit.
Yeah, definitely. And have you got any projects that you're working on currently or that you're thinking of working on in the future?
Absolutely. After On the Shoulders of Giants, I did this comedy schlock thing. It's very cheesy. It's called Bikini Girls versus Dinosaurs. And exactly as it sounds, the idea for that was, if you were going to fight a dinosaur, what's the most inappropriate thing you would wear? It's a bikini. So we had some really great actresses come out and take part in that film. It's played straight. The comedy's in the premise once again. They have some great fun dialogue. It's a bit like a Red Dwarf for the sci-fi fans out there. That kind of cheesy element, schmaltzy. But we had some great computer-generated dragons. Technology allowed us to move on to make some better imagery. And from there, I've written a few more pieces because I wanted to jump from having basically no budget to having some budget.
Yeah.
So what I'm working on now is two things. The principal front runner is a project called Air, the movie. And Air is about a fictional international air race set just after World War II. And that was inspired by films like Those Magnificent Men and Their Flying Machine, The Great Race, all that classic kind of 60s films, which I loved as a kid. Wacky Races with Dick Dastardly. I would
Yeah.
love to see that on a big screen because I remember in 1998. Are you a Bruce Willis fan, Hazel?
I think Bruce Willis tends to always play Bruce Willis.
Bit like Sean Connery. I
Yeah.
loved him in Armageddon about the giant meteorite going to impact Earth. I remember going to see it when that film came out, and in particular, I like to go and have me what do I eat? Maltesers and my minstrels and a bottle of a fizzy drink. I was near the front, and the film was on, and it just completely swept me up. I remember trying to bend down to get my chocolate, and I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. I want to bring that back to air. So where we are on air right now is we've got a screenplay, and this time we're trying to raise production value. We're trying to raise some proper investment. So potentially in December or January, I'm hoping to have a funding event in the city centre. I've got a very professional venue who said they'll sponsor their venue for me to do this and just present the film to a group of high net worth individuals essentially who know why they are at this presentation and get them to back the film.
Yeah.
We have a tax relief certificate, an interim tax relief certificate from the British Film Institute and the Department of Digital, Culture, Media and Sport. So anybody putting money in potentially can get quite a healthy rebate back from the taxman for investing in essentially a high risk project.
Yeah.
I've got some very talented crew lined up who want to come out and work on the visual effects departments, camera teams, and costume. Yorkshire, you probably know, is a hotbed of very talented people.
Yeah.
And a project like this has got scope for employing some very skilled people, a lot of people developing their skills. So it's just a case of getting that finance in place. And then I think we've got I can't say a world beater, but we've got something which can stand on the global stage.
Oh, how amazing! Well, let me know when you're when you're close to that point, and I can always add links and things like that to the podcast notes. So if anybody's interested, they can get involved.
That would be tremendous because it's always about collaboration, the best ideas coming to the front.
Yeah, exactly. And so you said two projects. So Air is one. What's the other?
I'm harking back to my 50s fun phase. I've been working on recently a thing called Earth versus Martians versus Giant Robots.
That sounds absolutely brilliant.
It's going to be fun. It's just, I loved War of the Worlds, the 1950s version, and also the more recent version with Spielberg and Tom Cruise. And I liked When Worlds Collide, the way they played, the way they looked. And I have a 3-year-old son, and he was playing with some building blocks. And I thought, wow, he's built this crazy robot. And I was using some Play-Doh to play alongside him. And I thought, hey, this looks like a Martian. Then the idea just landed. Earth versus Martians versus giant robots. I've never seen that mashup before. So I guess I was a guy who's got to make it. So we've just completed a teaser trailer. And I've met a very talented composer who's going to create some classic 1950s music. Do you know the sound of the theremin, Hazel?
Yes, I do.
I've asked this gentleman to put some theremin in, so I'm waiting to hear back from him. The audience will know, your audience will know that.
Yeah,
So,
it's a real sound, isn't it? It sort of conjures up space and eeriness.
exactly. So that's the thing we're going for. So we're going to put that teaser together. I've actually been struggling quite a bit recently to think. I love Air, the movie, and Earth versus Martians versus Giant Robots so much, but Air is a bit more developed in terms of being a wider commercial project. So I've had to literally in the last, week or so, bring that to the forefront again. And depending on how Air goes, get a start on Earth versus Martians perhaps late in the new year. That would be an easier project to finance.
Yeah.
Great to be able to finance the two together, but you've only got one pair of hands kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
but Earth versus Martians versus giant robots does what it says in the tin. It would be great fun. And this time, on this kind of film, it's once I live in Leeds, I consider myself an adopted Yorkshire son. It would be based in the UK. We get to blow up part of the Houses of Parliament. I can't say any more than that. You just blow it up on the screen, I hasten to add. It's going to be tremendous fun, but it's set right here in Yorkshire, so it's going to have a real grassroots thing, but go around the world.
That just sounds absolutely fantastic. And so you said you're an adopted son of Yorkshire. How long have you lived in Leeds?
I like to joke that I left my house in Ipswich in the mid-90s to get a loaf of bread. I've ended up living in Leeds ever since. So I've been here. I came up to go to film school in 1994. I've just stayed because I realised film is my thing. I love it. I've done a few other career jobs and they've been false starts. And I'm glad I've had that failure because it's actually made me obsessed and hungry for the thing I really enjoy and I love with a great passion. And I've just stayed because London is traditionally seen as the media mecca,
Yeah.
perhaps Manchester more recently. But you're a much smaller fish in a huge pond in London. And I've seen a lot of contemporaries go there and falter and move away from the film industry, everything else. Whereas in Yorkshire, no disrespect to Londonites, but I found people to be incredibly friendly. I love that the countryside is so close by. It was real undiscovered country.
Yeah.
There's so many great things around here. And if you need to meet somebody in London, well, guess what? You can hop on a train or a coach and be there in short order.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah, the
2 hours, 20
technology
minutes
is
these days.
exactly. So just stay here in Yorkshire, build a base here, build a name here, and then the world's your oyster.
Yeah, exactly. So you've lived here definitely long enough to answer the 3 questions that I ask every guest.
Aha.
The first one being, what would you say is great about the city of Leeds?
You know what? One of the people are friendly. I remember the first week I was here, I was living in Hare Hills and near where TradeX used to be, which is now Morrison's.
Oh, yeah.
And I came around the corner. I said, "Excuse me, mate, I've lost." And the guy literally took me by my hand and took me to where I needed to go, which was
Oh,
tremendous. And it makes me think Leeds is a big city. It's a thriving city. You can see its prosperity by all the tower cranes still building things, but it's not so big that you can get lost. And I
yeah,
love that.
yeah. And if you had to choose something not so great, what would you go for?
Um, I've got that written down, so you really have to scratch my head. I think it's almost a minor one, really. It would be, I suppose, you start looking at the social side. There's still pockets of, depravity or
Yeah,
deprivation in the city, but that's changing. Um, as a car driver, parking in the city is becoming more, difficult.
yeah,
That's a relatively minor thing. It's just hoping you have leveling up. Let's bring the whole city to be leveled up. That would be
yeah,
my just one downer on Leeds.
yeah. I agree with you completely. And if somebody had been a resident of Leeds for a very long time, would you be able to tell them about something that you would consider to be a hidden gem that they might never have heard of?
There's two things there. It's two things, and I didn't know this until quite old neighbours told me a while ago that the Tesco on Roundhay Road it used to be the site of an aircraft factory. I
Oh,
think
I
from
didn't know
World
that.
War One or two. So that was wow. But also, it's that hidden. You've probably heard this one a million times. It's the hidden bandstand in Roundhay Park. After years of being here, I was finally shown it, and it's magical.
Oh, I don't think I have, I don't think I have heard of that.
Oh, but it's a beautiful old dilapidated bandstand hidden. Well, it's not hidden. It's just not well known in the back of Roundhay Park. And when you go there, today I went in particular. The sun was still high, but through all the greenery, it was just like being in Middle Earth. Lord of the Rings. It was just absolutely magical. And apparently, back in the day, the ladies would promenade up the remains of the footpath and just sit in this area and enjoy the view, which is now kind of overgrown and is being forgotten. But it's just like a time machine. So, I'm not going to reveal where it is. Actually, I couldn't even say it without giving precise coordinates.
People will have to go and find it for themselves.
That's it. And it's a great delight and a joy to see in person.
Oh, well, they're wonderful choices. It's been fantastic talking to you, Kenneth. What will you be doing with the rest of your day?
Right, I will. My dear elder sister has come to visit me from Stoke-on-Trent, and I'm just blessed that she's made time to see us for the weekend, so we'll spend time there. And then a friend of mine, Dave Newell, I believe you've spoken to Dave, actually,
That's right, yeah, I have.
one of your guests. He is very involved in the Asperger's charity, so they're going to be at the Comic Con in Harrogate tomorrow. It's I think it's the biggest one in Europe. And I like
Yes, it's the Thought Bubble Festival, is that right?
That's it. Absolutely spot on. I do a bit of photography from time to time, and for the last several years, I've been photographing the Asperger's stand, Dave's charity stand at Thought Bubble. So I should be doing that this weekend.
Oh, well, definitely say hello to him from me.
I will do.
Thank you so very much. It's been great speaking to you. And, enjoy your sister, enjoy Thought Bubble. And, yeah, let me know when you've got links that I can add, and then people can get involved and help out with these great filmic endeavours of yours.
Hazel, thank you so much for the opportunity. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. It was fantastic chatting to Kenneth Barker. Do go along and look at WOTR Films website, where you can see details of all of the great things that he's done. And you can also check out a lot of his work on YouTube. He chose to feature a song by really another friend of the show, Johnny Cosmic and the Night Terrors. You might remember Johnny Cosmic from the Leeds Tarot deck episode. He was a really interesting guest, and now you can hear him sing. And the song is called Count Creepyhead. It's incredibly hard, fast, driven rock music, I guess you would say. But if I was you, I probably wouldn't listen to the lyrics with small children. But if you're not with small children, bang it on really loud. Anyway, Leeds, it's been great chatting to you, and I will speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Many faces, many lives, many notches, many brides, a reputation spanning wide, the silent killer in the night, between the living and the dead. They call him Count Creepyhead. Make sure you're careful where you tread. The creeper is out there. Everyone has opinions, but none of them know the truth. Or receptive in this way, fearing you'll stand in jail. There's no doubt his wicked ways shouldn't be excused. The creeper live up to his name, come creeping for you. He is filled with so much pride. Every time he takes a life, the creeper is disfigured freak. Not someone you'd like to meet. A toxic cunt, a feral geek. He'll watch you while you're asleep. His many faces lived many lives. It's likely you know him.